sitting for a while. Come on, stand up. Some of you can, some of you can't. I won't say who can't. I know you got to move just a little bit. The reason I want you moving is because this is a rally. Now, I'm not going to make you run around the block or anything, but after we're finished today, something's got to happen. And that means you've got to exercise the most important weapon you have available as an American citizen. You've got to exercise your right to vote. And not only you, but every one of your friends. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about religious freedom and why it is worth a fight. Feel free to sit down if you'd like. I'll just take a few minutes here. Now, the reason we are gathered here today is because our federal government, under the executive power and administrative decisions of President Barack Obama, has declared that it can determine both the content and the activity of religious bodies. In other words, we feel compelled to be here today, rallying for the upcoming elections, instead of enjoying a free afternoon with our families, because we are under the threat of being forced to genuflect at the government's altar of secularism and consumerism. In other words, we are practically coerced to be here today, strategizing for freedom in a remarkably similar way to our forefathers who felt irreversibly drawn to town hall meetings in 1775 and 1776. Why? Because they also had to strategize for freedom from an oppressive government who refused religious liberty to the inhabitants of the British colonies in the New World. Now, let's not give the appearance of appearing ungrateful for the accomplishments that have brought us here today. Many men and women, young and younger, white and black, red and yellow, have willingly shed their blood so that we could have the freedom to gather today and redress grievances against our government, just as our First Amendment rights allow. Let us not be ungrateful for living in the most educated, scientific, and technologically advanced society that has ever been known in this world. Let us not be unthankful that many Protestants and Catholics, Amish, Quakers, Jews, and other members of religious faiths have fought to give us the liberty we have today to meet and plan for our conscientious freedom. I want you to use your imagination with me for a moment, please. Here's what I'd like you to imagine. I'd like you to imagine a beautiful city. They say there was a man by the name of Thomas Lowe and another man by the name of Thomas Goody. Now, Thomas Lowe had a train, you see, and Thomas Goody had some land, you see. And what they were going to do is Thomas Lowe was going to transport some people to the land owned by Thomas Goody, and they were going to build a beautiful city. Now, as a result, everyone had to work together to build the city as a common good. It's a good of all of our different talents working together. We are merchants and farmers, craftspeople, musicians, educators, clergy, bankers, and so forth. And we use these talents so that each of us cooperate in building this beautiful city. So imagine now this beautiful city, and imagine the foundation of the city. Is it sand or is it rock? What does Jesus say about building your house on sand? Let's hope it's a rock. Let's imagine that this rock now is freedom. And this common good, this beautiful city that we're after, cannot be accomplished without freedom. Our freedom, working towards a common good. Freedom to work properly, however, needs morality. Morality is the pursuit of goodness and the avoidance of evil. The fundamental problem is that morality is missing in contemporary society. There is no common understanding of good and evil. Now recall what happens when a rich young man comes up to Jesus in the gospel. The man approaches Jesus and says, "Master, what good must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus responds, "Why do you call me good? There is only one who is good." Who was Jesus presuming to be the one who is good? Who? Who is Jesus presuming the one who is good? Anybody? God. God is good. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Yes. Let me tell you about something that just happened for those of you who are watching TV at all. Maybe one of the most threatening actions against our religious liberty happened on the floor recently of the Democratic National Convention. Did you see it? Some of you did. If you didn't, let me tell you. The word God, as in God-given talents, was removed from the Democratic Party platform. When this was pointed out by a conservative commentator, the president intervened during the convention and asked for the word God to be inserted back into the platform. So the chair of the platform committee, Governor Ted Strickland of Ohio, made a motion on the floor to insert God back into the platform. The chair of the Democratic National Convention called for a voice vote on the motion, and he said, "All those in favor of inserting God back into the platform say yay. All those opposed say nay." So, do you want God in your platform? Yay or nay? Yay! Do you know what they said on the party floor of the Democratic National Convention? No! So the chair of the Democratic National Convention didn't know what to do. He said, let's take that vote again. All those in favor of inserting God in the platform say yay. All those in favor, all those opposed say nay. So, what's the vote? Yay or nay? No, they said. Second time, louder than the first time. And then all of a sudden there was this big scuttle back here on the platform trying to figure out what to do next. So he comes forward. He says, "We need to take that vote one more time. All those in favor of inserting God in the platform say yay. All those opposed say nay." No! Rang out louder than ever in the hall, and he said, "The yeas have it." And then what you heard was blasphemy upon blasphemy, boo upon boo, hiss upon hiss. And they denied God 3 times. Those are the leaders, the political leaders of every state in the Union who have laid out what they believe concerning the rock upon which our society is built. If that rock crumbles, turns into sand, there is nothing left on which to build. There is no morality, there is no freedom, and there shall be no civilization. It can be threatening. So let me take you back one more time. Jesus said to the rich young man, "Keep the commandments. Keep the commandments." So Jesus' answer to the rich young man about what is good is the same answer for you and for me. Goodness, morality is based upon God's commandments. So, at the base is God. then God's commandments. And on top of that is morality, which is the pursuit of goodness. And on top of that is freedom, which is directionless unless it pursues goodness. And on top of freedom is the common good. Our beautiful city, our society, our county, our state, our country. So, use your imagination now. God, God's commandments, morality, freedom, the common good. Are you with me? Hello, are you with me? Okay, so what do we need to do? The reason we are here today specifically, planned this before, and then all of a sudden the Democratic National Convention gave us another occasion. But specifically what got us here is an action by the Obama administration that prompted us together, and it's called technically the interim final rule of the United States Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. This rule is an implementation of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. This act was recently upheld as constitutional by the United States Supreme Court on June 28th, and beginning this past August, you may not realize it, but practically every taxpayer in the United States was forced to pay for, quote, preventive services for women, including recommended contraceptive services. Why? Because these women will no longer be charged a copay, co-insurance, or deductible. They will get this free service to destroy their fertility and their newly conceived child at your and my expense. For certain religious groups, there's a one-year reprieve of this requirement. They have a year to learn how to violate their consciences. However, next August, nearly all religious groups that provide any kind of charitable services to persons other than their members must comply with this rule. So, if a religious body has a hospital, a social service, a school that serves persons other than members of their own church, synagogue, or mosque, then that religious group is not exempt from the HHS mandate. And what makes this mandate so dangerous is that it is the most visible and aggressive act to date by the Obama administration upon the consciences of America, especially God-fearing Americans, for three reasons. Let me give you the first one. First, the Food and Drug Administration defines contraceptive services where there is no recognition that the spacing of children should be a decision between a husband and wife. Rather, these contraceptive services must be given to any woman for whatever reason she wants. So practically speaking, that makes contraception a moral mandate upon every woman because the federal government has decided that contraception must be paid for by all taxpayers just as we pay for national security. The reason this thinking is so wrong is because at the cellular level, marriage is the glue that holds civil society together. The Obama administration's action is not to protect that cellular level, not to protect marriage. What they want to do is replace marriage with the government. Second, the FDA definition of contraceptive services includes barrier methods that prevent the man's sperm from reaching the woman's egg. But it also includes intrauterine devices and artificial hormones that do what? They create a hostile environment in the woman's womb to prevent a newly fertilized human being from being able to implant. In essence, so-called emergency contraceptives like Ella and Plan B may act as chemical abortions. For this reason, they are called abortifacients. Third, among the preventive services mandated is the counseling for abortion as the backup to failed contraception. In other words, the HHS mandate is a government subsidy, a bailout of Planned Parenthood and all the other death-dealing partners in the abortion industry. According to the Alliance Defending Freedom, there will be, by January 1st, 2014, enough money coming from all the premiums that you and I must pay to cover 2 million killings per year in the United States through surgical abortions. Right now in the United States, we only have 1.2 million surgical abortions. They will be pocketing all that extra money to do what? to make sure that pornography is provided in your public schools, to make sure that they give a cover to men who are sex abusers, to make sure that they provide enough services for sex traffickers. That is what the mandate will require us to pay for. The reason the HH mandate is an attack upon religious liberty is because the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Christian churches, the Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America, the Southern Baptist Convention, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and other groups embrace a plan for marriage and family that recognizes one man and one woman with their children as the fundamental cell of society. When the government forces us to cooperate in dismantling this fundamental cell, our religious liberty is being attacked. We are being forced to act against our pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty with no choice in the matter. If we lose this fight, if we give up this battle, if we concede this election by staying home, not getting our friends in church to the voting booth, not getting our neighbors to the voting booth, if we abandon this ground to those who want to trample upon our religious perspective, upon our consciences, then we will have bequeathed to our children an enslavement that our ancestors fought to escape. I noticed behind me a poster for a movie coming out very soon called For Greater Glory. If you doubt whether the government can take away your religious liberty and will go so far as to say, if you don't agree with us, we will hang you, please see the movie For Greater Glory. It happened in the 1920s in Mexico, which was supposedly a Catholic country. And the government that became elected eventually decided Catholics had no place. And they were literally hanged right along the railroad tracks, hundreds of them, simply because they said, we will not bow to the government. It's not that far away, but you and I can act. There's a wonderful booklet up here at the table. It tells you, it's the Citizens Rule Book. And if you want to know where I got my ideas from, I didn't read this book until just a little while ago, but the ideas correspond to what I just said. At the beginning, it'll tell you exactly what happens to a society like ours that becomes so successful, we get lazy. And if we become that lazy, we are the only ones who become accountable then for what happens in our society. But there is a choice. It's the very first amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It's called the Bill of Rights. The very first liberty that the framers of the Constitution put into place says this: Congress, notice Congress, not the President, not the Supreme Court, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Why is that our first right? Because everything else falls apart without God at our base. Everything in society will be destroyed. Our motto in the United States is "In God we trust." Do we? Yes. So it is in God that we trust. We are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.